Okay, everyone. Egypt, Gift of the Nile, Part 2. Following the Old Kingdom, the period of the Great Pyramids, we enter into a period in which Egypt goes through a period of conquest. And if you look here at these images, these two artifacts are describing the occupation and then ultimately the change in Egypt that leads to the New Kingdom. The artifact above is depicting the uprising which occurred in Thebes that threw out the Hyksos who controlled Egypt, whereas the relief at the bottom shows you during this period of time, the period in which the Hyksos had come in and controlled Egypt. And what you notice about that relief at the bottom is, one, you can see that there's clearly a non-Egyptian other there, as you can see the difference between the Egyptian and the Hyksos individual. But you also see the advent of new types of technologies and new types of things that were not used in Egypt prior. The bringing, for example, of the compound bow, of various types of domesticated animals. The Hyksos were descendants of Indo-Europeans, and so they had mastered the usage of the horse, of the war chariot, the composite bow, and bronze metallurgy. And they bring these technologies, these domesticated animals, the use of war chariots, the compound bow, they bring these to Egypt, and it revolutionizes ancient Egypt, and it provides the in a lot of ways the technological and military stylings that would make the New Kingdom possible. So the arrival of the Hyksos, which conquer and control Egypt for a period of time, ultimately leads to military advancement in Egypt. And the Hyksos will be thrown out. They are influenced. The Hyksos were influenced by Indo-Europeans. Indo-Europeans was a wide group of individuals. The Indo-European is a language group, and it's a wide group of people that migrate initially out of Central Asia, and they migrate to modern-day Iran, Pakistan, India. They migrate to Turkey, to Greece, to Germany, to Europe in general. They migrate into Mesopotamia. If you remember from the Mesopotamian lecture, the Hittites were an example of this group. And of course, the Hyksos come to Egypt. They conquer Egypt. They will ultimately be cast out from an uprising from the city of Thebes in Egypt. And this marks the beginning of the period, the movement into the New Kingdom, which is really the period of ancient Egypt's greatest power. The New Kingdom in Egypt is an incredibly significant period. It's the defining moment in Egyptian history. Even though we oftentimes associate ancient Egypt with the pyramids, the New Kingdom in Egypt is the period in which Egypt becomes its most powerful. Egypt becomes an empire, expanding out and controlling other peoples and other territories. It's the period of Ramses the Great, who was the greatest Egyptian builder in history. It's also, that period is also loosely associated with the believed period of the Exodus in the life of Moses, though there are not historical documents from the Egyptian side that verify that, but that's, if the biblical record is accurate, that would be the time period. This is the era of King Tut. It's also the era of Egypt's first and most powerful queen, not Cleopatra, but Queen Hatshepsut. Cleopatra doesn't come along until really the Roman period, and the context of ancient Egypt is far less relevant than Queen Hatshepsut, who was a powerful woman and who took power in the country and sought to display her power in part by presenting herself as a man, which was a signifier of the extreme patriarchal nature of Egyptian culture at this time. Queen Hatshepsut ruled for 22 years, from 1479 to 1458. She was a co-regent for her successor, Tutmosis III. Upon her death, there was a concerted effort to eliminate her from history. Now, why would this be? And the answer really is quite simple. I'm going to talk about this relief momentarily. But the answer is quite simple. Hatshepsut had effectively usurped Tutmosis III from his crown. Tutmosis was very young when Hatshepsut started ruling. And so Hatshepsut sort of tried to create herself and make herself pharaoh. She does seize power. And Tutmosis III, who was the rightful heir, saw this as a direct attempt to steal his crown, to steal his power. And as a result of that, those associated with Tutmosis's reign go to great lengths to eliminate Hatshepsut from the historical record because of her what Tutmosis saw as her attempt to steal his rightful place as pharaoh. If you look at this relief here, this relief also depicts something very interesting about this time. In short, what it implies, what is happening here, is you have a depiction of Egyptians transplanting a tree. And what this relief may suggest is the development of a large and interconnected network sphere, a large interconnected empire in which Egyptians are controlling and trading with far-off lands, in which trees from far-off places can be moved on ships and traded and transported and bought and sold in different parts of the empire. So this, in a way, signifies the interconnection of different places, peoples, and goods within the Egyptian empire during the New Kingdom. Tutmosis III, or Tutmosis III, was Egypt's greatest conqueror, and during his time, after he takes power following the death of Hatshepsut, Tutmosis moves the capital to Thebes, which is where the uprising that ousted the Hyksos began from. He begins a new variation of the sun god, the god Amun-Ra, and undertook the most expansive and powerful empire in Egypt's history, extending the empire down into Nubia, which is today modern Sudan, and extending it all the way up through territories that encompass areas of Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria today. Not long after Tutmosis III, you will see the empire begin to weaken, and the empire will begin to slowly be whittled back. And this was in part because of the leadership of Amenhotep IV, who sometimes was referred to as the heretic king. Amenhotep IV focused his energies not on foreign policy, not on empire, not on expansion, but on a domestic revolution. And his revolution was in religion and art. So Egyptian religion is polytheistic, right? Many, many, many gods. Egyptian art is idealistic. Egyptians are never presented in their true form as they are. They're always presented in an idealistic form. The Egyptian shape, the Egyptian form in a hieroglyph, for example, is always presented in its ideal form in artwork. Egyptian religion is polytheistic. These were ancient, multiple thousand-year-old practices in Egyptian culture. Amenhotep IV does something very interesting, and it causes tremendous tension within his society. What Amenhotep does is promote a monotheism. The first pharaoh and the only pharaoh to promote a monotheistic religion, a one-god religion. Amenhotep IV centers his religion around the god of the sun disk, the god Aten. He and his wife was Nefertiti, both changed their name. Nefertiti becomes Nefer-Nefer-Aten. Akhenaten, instead of Amenhotep, Amenhotep changes his name to Akhenaten. His heir, Tutankhamun, would be named Tutankhaten first, before he becomes named Tutankhamun. He goes about great lengths to try to destroy the old polytheism. He shuts down many of the old religious shrines and creates a great deal of tension within his society, as the Egyptian people were we believe, not open to accepting these changes in their culture. Likewise, artistic depictions of Akhenaten are very realistic, and he was a rather different-looking pharaoh. Akhenaten was he had a very an interesting look. He had wide hips. He had a chest that almost looked feminine in terms of its breast. He had a long face. He doesn't present himself in the idealistic form. His wife, who is depicted here, is Nefertiti, and we've never found the burial places of either of these individuals, though recently they think that Nefertiti's tomb is located behind a wall in the tomb of King Tut. Well, how do you think this revolution in Egyptian culture is received in Egypt? And here's another relief of Akhenaten venerating the sun disk god Aten, and you can look and you can see the very unique and different looking shape, almost feminine looking shape of the pharaoh Akhenaten. The answer is that the Egyptians did not accept this well. Some surmise that he was murdered in a coup. He created tremendous tensions and anger within his society for undermining long-held traditions and cultural practices. And this takes us to King Tut. Now, of course, we all know about King Tut. We've all heard the name King Tut. We know King Tut is the king who was discovered in the early 20th century, who in his tomb there was the most tremendous wealth. When King Tut's tomb was discovered, the immediate question that everyone answered was, why was there such wealth in Tut's tomb? All the other tombs that had been found had been robbed and raided, and we found very little. We went into Tut's tomb and we found tremendous gold, tremendous wealth. This is the area where the pharaoh's sarcophagus laid. The fine and ornate jewelry and wealth and gold in his tomb was beyond comprehension. Here is Tut's mummy. And the big question was this unique? Were all pharaohs' tombs this lavish and robbed? Or was Tut's tomb unique because he returned Egypt to the old ways after the experience of Akhenaten? This, of course, is the king's burial mass. King Tut is referred to as the boy king. He is, in terms of his power as an imperial leader, in terms of the length of his rule, in terms of the things he really did from what we would immediately see in terms of conquest, in terms of building, he's insignificant. He's a pharaoh for a few years and then he's dead at a very young age. But he gets this tremendous wealth just in his tomb. Incredible, incomprehensible amount of wealth in his tomb. And the question was always, well, why? If he's the boy king, he dies, dies, off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly, but I believe he was 22 when he died. But he was very young, and he never did anything in foreign policy and expanding the empire and great building. He never did anything of significance. His tomb was basically completely hidden. There's no great pyramid. There's no great temple. It's just kind of hidden in the ground. And so why all the wealth? Some historians have surmised that this was a way of celebrating King Tut's return of Egypt to the old ways following the experience of his predecessor, Akhenaten. Many believe that King Tut, who was first King Tut, becomes King Tut as a signifier of his returning the kingdom of Egypt to the old religious ways, and that this was celebrated tremendously by the people, and that all of the wealth and splendor in his tomb was somehow a blessing of the people to him, a way of saying thank you. And of course, other theories, if you believe in the sort of, if you believe in things like curses, many theorize too that there was an inscription above the door of Tut's tomb referred to as the curse of the pharaohs, that cursed anyone who entered the tomb. And some theorized, not obviously scholars don't generally accept this, because scholars don't generally accept the idea of curses, because there's a lack of empirical scientific evidence for such things. But some have theorized that there was a mystical curse placed on the tomb, and that robbers didn't enter it because they feared the curse of the pharaohs. Interestingly, many of the individuals, by the way, who were first to enter the tomb did die strange deaths in relatively recent time period afterwards. Though I'm not advocating that there's actually a curse, but some scholars will certainly believe that the idea that there was a curse maybe could have deterred robbers from the tomb. And of course, just recently, archaeologists are making new discoveries around this tomb. Many believe that Nefertiti, the wife of Akhenaten, many believe that her tomb is located behind a wall inside of King Tut's tomb. So over time, we'll have to see if this is proven correct. So Ramses the Great, Ramses II, reigned from 1279 to 1213 BCE. He is a tremendously long-lived pharaoh. He had many, many, many wives and many, many, many children. The number of children that he sired is, I can't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to say it, but it's a really, really almost unfathomable amount of children that he sired. He's considered to be Egypt's greatest builder. He built tremendous monuments in Egypt, adorning his legacy. Temples, huge statues, incredible shrines that depict him alongside Egyptian deities. If ever there was a deity who successfully presented himself as a god king, is Ramses the Great. Ramses was also a great military leader, and the relief here depicts Ramses the Great in battle on a war chariot with, of course, a compound bow, which, of course, that is not something that came out of Egypt itself. That is a indicator of the long-term influence through different groups of, well, initially Indo-Europeans that transformed the way people did things throughout the world. This is one of the these great columns that Ramses had constructed during his reign. As a military leader, he fought with the Hittites, and the Hittites were people of Indo-European descent who lived in the area of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Also, we call this Asia Minor. And he's remembered for the Battle of Kadesh, in which really neither the Hittites nor the Egyptians won at the Battle of Kadesh. But we mention the Battle of Kadesh because, one, it's a depiction of the rivalry between the Hittite Empire and the Egyptian Empire at this time. But it's also one of, if not the earliest military event that we actually have in understanding from documentation of military tactics and strategies in the battle. Ramses is considered to be the pharaoh that would probably be most associated with the Exodus. we actually don't have any depictions, at least from the Egyptian side, of a massive exodus of Hebrew slaves, though there were Hebrew slaves in the Nile area, but some scholars debate the occurrence of the Exodus because we don't have, from the Egyptian side, we don't have any documentation of a wide-scale exodus of slaves. So this, whether or not there was a biblical Exodus led by Moses, remains debated. But if it occurred, then it would have occurred most likely during the reign of Ramses the Great. Here's another depiction of the great pharaoh, Ramses. This map here shows you the Hittite Empire and the Egyptian Empire. And of course you can see the Battle of Kadesh on this map. The Battle of Kadesh, which I believe, if my geography is serving me correctly, I believe is located in modern-day Syria. Though it could be Lebanon, but I think it's in modern-day Syria. But you can see where the battle is right there, as these two early and great empires struggled with one another for dominance in this incredibly important part of the Fertile Crescent. And here you see the mummy of Ramses the Great. Anyway, guys, I hope this is helpful. Let's have a great week, and I hope you enjoy this presentations, guys. All right, thanks.